From Nunavut to Calexico, from Newfoundland to the Aleutian Islands, we have the continent covered. This is the Dynasty Pulse with your hosts, Grindberg and Bigz. What's up, everybody?
What is up, folks?
How you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. How are you doing?
I'm good, but you know what? I've been reading some SEO stuff, and it says that you don't want a long intro. Producer! What is up, everybody? It's Grindberg and Bigz. It's the Dynasty Pulse. It's Thursday night. I'm watching my bracket get absolutely destroyed. Kentucky is about to lose, and it's crazy. Other than that, we got a good show for you. We got some free agent buzz. We got some news. Grindberg with the news. And then we're going to talk about some impacts that have happened this offseason. We have couched it in free agent impacts, but impact players. But I cheated, because the players that I'm talking about, none of them were free agents, and I'll tell you why. Plus, while we go over the news, there's going to be a lot of spoiler alerts because most of the guys that we're going to be talking about are in the news section anyway. But yeah, Grindberg, hit it.
All right.
And don't forget to like and subscribe, everybody.
Exactly. You're going to see that a lot in these. So we've got a lot of movement, and even since last week. So we have a full week since free agency broke, and we have some big moves like Justin Fields. Exactly. Being traded to the Steelers, Fields was rumored to become the backup in Pittsburgh behind newly acquired Russell Wilson. The Bears will receive a 6th-round pick that could turn into a 4th. Early this offseason, rumors floated around that the Bears were realistically looking for a 2nd-round pick for Fields. Unfortunately, free agency hampered his value, and several quarterbacks signed with the spots that surrounded most Fields' rumors. Wilson was one of those quarterbacks signing with the Steelers. The Bears now could earn a 4th-round pick from them, but he may have to defy all odds by playing 51% of the snaps during the 2024 season. It's all but likely this pick will now convey a 4th-rounder and will remain a 6th. So apparently Fields is preferred to be in Pittsburgh, as there was other offers around him. So the Bears decided to do Fields right. I'm not sure about that. Crazy times. It's been a very interesting to see how this will shake out. Biggs, what do you think is going to happen in Pittsburgh? Do you think Fields will eventually get that starting role, or do you think we have Russell Wilson cooking?
No, but what it does lead me to is, thankfully, the Raiders weren't involved, because if they were dangling something for Fields, and they would have had him come in as the starter. They wouldn't have had him come in as a backup. So unless he wanted to be a backup, I'm just glad the Raiders weren't inquiring. But yeah, it's Russell Wilson's job until he retires. And by that time, the Steelers they might use Fields down the road a couple years from now, but he's never gonna be much in the NFL.
All right. That's an
interesting. In fantasy, it's a different story, but
yeah,
to be good in fantasy, you have to have a job, and if you're not good in the NFL, you're not going to have a job.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Keenan Allen was the next move the Bears did, and they acquired.
Go Bears! Now he's a Bear squared. A Bear squared.
A Bear squared. Allen is going into his final season of his 4-year extension he signed in 2020. The veteran wide receiver declined to take a pay cut and restructure his contract. So he will now be a Bear, and it'll be interesting to see, with Caleb Williams being rumored to be the 1st overall pick, with DJ Moore and potentially another wide receiver headed in there. The Bears have the 9th overall pick as well, so we will see. Rumored has it that Adunze might be the guy that they're targeting there. Should be an interesting season for the Bears if they have Caleb Williams and they're going to surround him with some talent.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We'll talk more about that later.
All right. So we
But
have
I do want to say, if you want a career retrospective on Keenan Allen, hop on over to Player Profiler News.
all right. So the next one up is, who am I going after here? Mike Williams. The New York Jets announced that they have signed the former Charger. So the Chargers are unloading all their wide receivers. Interesting situation there for them heading into this season. So we'll see what happens with the Chargers. But Mike Williams, a first-round pick by them in 2017, spent his entire career there. He played 80 games, going for 309 receptions for 4,806 yards and 31 touchdowns. He had 1,000 yards receiving in 2019 and in 2021. I think there's still some stuff left in the tank, but his durability has always been an issue. He's been banged up in 2017, and then he actually tore his ACL this year and is still coming off of that. So it'll be interesting to see where he and his rehab happen and when a training camp opens. But I think this is going to be a good spot for him to rejuvenate his career with the Jets. I love that situation there. The Jets are building a pretty good, solid foundation. They signed offensive lineman Tyron Smith, which is going to help their O-line, keep Aaron Rodgers healthy. Looking pretty good there in the Jets. What do you think about that situation now?
There's never a scenario in which he's going to be better than Garrett Wilson unless Garrett Wilson gets injured. I never rely on Mike Williams. I don't think the Jets should either. He could be a really good veteran piece for Aaron Rodgers, and it does make the Jets better. Let's just put it that way. But in fantasy wise, he's never going to be better than Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. Agreed. He's going to be a big red zone target, I'm thinking. He's going to see those looks in the red zone because of his size. And if he could stay healthy, he'll be potentially a 10-plus touchdown kind of guy. Maybe the yardage and the receptions won't be there, but depending on if Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy too, that could be a possibility there. So an interesting situation nonetheless.
JETS, just like your hat.
Boom. The opposite of this Jets, though. We have a very good team right now. Alexander Mattison is now a Raider. Interesting situation there.
It's true.
That is a good situation for Zamir White. I'm just saying that. Maybe another spoiler alert here, but Mattison is added in as a depth piece. I think he hasn't been in the 13 games with the Vikings last year. He only managed 700 yards on the ground without any rushing touchdowns on 180 attempts. So that is not very good production there. White was a good producer. So I know you're going to get that more into that in the next little segment. It looks like they're Bigz, but spoiler alert. And we'll move on from that one. We got a couple of low-key signings here. We got Josh Dobbs of the 49ers taking Sam Darnold's spot. That's just more like a backup situation. And then Rico Dowdle. This one is weird because the Cowboys don't have a lot of depth right now. They got Deuce Vaughn, Malik Davis, and Snoop Connor. Rico Dowdle with the signing might be the lead back, but obviously the Cowboys are in the market for a running back, and it might be in the draft. What do you think about a guy like Braylon Allen as a fit in Dallas there, Bigz?
I was going to say not so fast, my friend. Obviously, from last year, the Dallas Cowboys don't have a lot of holes to fill. They just need to, learn how to win. Maybe they were convinced that Rico Dowdle is good enough to be their lead back. They already have 4 backs. Maybe go over to Spot Track, look at who they benefit from letting go. It's not Deuce because he's still on a rookie non-first rounder contract. It's not Dowdle. He's a little bit older. And it's not Malik Davis because he's also older. And then they have Snoop Connor, who's also older. So they have this grab bag of guys who have been RB3s and Deuce Vaughn, who's younger than everybody. But Rico Dowdle, he stepped in quite a bit last year and was more fun than Tony Pollard. Mm-hmm. So maybe the Cowboys focus their draft efforts elsewhere than the running back room and go ahead. You've got the QB4, my QB4, and the wide receiver 1, my wide receiver 1. How much do you need to mess around at the running back position? You just got to hand off the ball to somebody who's going to get you 4 yards of carry. And Rico Dowdle can totally do that. Also, Rico Dowdle is a heavy favorite of our fearless leader over at Player Profiler, Matt Kelly. He is a big-time Rico Dowdle stan. And who knows, maybe Matt is right about something.
Yeah, man. I
I'm kidding, Matt. You're right about everything.
Absolutely. It could be a call there. Yeah, who knows? And that's why I bring it up. Like they're the spot where it's going to be like a lot of people were looking at that spot as a landing spot for some of these free agent running backs that just got plucked away like nobody's business, and now there's nobody left. It'll be interesting to see what happens there in the draft too. I'm anxious to know.
Yeah.
One more big name, not a big name, but a really cool situation there. And I think there could be some potential there with Devonta Foreman signing with the Cleveland Browns on a 1-year deal. The terms have yet to be announced. With the Bears in 2023, Foreman rushed for 425 yards and 4 touchdowns in 9 games and recorded 11 receptions for 77 yards and a touchdown. So looking decent there. That backfield could be pretty open. It looks like it might be a committee to start the year with Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, because we are not sure what is going to happen with Nick Chubb. He is not expected to be ready to start the season from what I hear after that knee injury in week 2 last year. So Foreman could actually be the lead back headed into camp. Not sure what's going to happen there. What do you think? You think Ford has done enough to be the lead guy, or is it going to be a Devonta Foreman-Ford split?
No, like with Mattison, I think Foreman is basically an insurance policy, similar to what the Saints did last year with the backups that they brought in to get over the hump, waiting for Alvin Kamara to come back. There is a small likelihood of Nick Chubb actually staying with the team after his PUP designation is over. They can put the PUP on him, and then they can wait and see how he is when he comes back. I think 4 games into the seasons. I don't think Foreman's going to be much more than a roster filler. I think Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, they've got the reins, and I don't see a lot from Foreman.
Yeah, man, I think that's a good take. Foreman has done a little bit in the past, but he's always been a committee guy. I mean, if you look at the Bears last year, 3 running backs, it's just going to be a mess. The same situation if you think about it in Cleveland until Chubb is back or is moved. So, yeah.
It's the way of the NFL.
Yeah, so Bigz free agency happened, and there's some
impact. It's happening.
Yeah, there's some big impacts that happen, and we're going to cover. So you're going to go over your 3 big impacts, and I'm going to go over my 3 impacts. Like impacts as it stands to a certain player and how it affects them and their teams. Let's do it.
My first free agent impact player is Zamir White, Las Vegas Raiders running back. Now, the Raiders signed Alexander Mattison. They re-signed Amir Abdullah. They allowed Josh Jacobs to float to the Green Bay Packers in free agency. Zamir White was the only running back left in the running back room at a certain point. So now he takes over. He had a 4-game audition at the end of last season when Jacobs was out with an injury. And in those 4 games, Zamir White had 3 games over 100 total yards. It's reasonable to extrapolate that at 21 carries per game, which was his average, and at 4.3 yards per carry, which is about what he did, and I think Jacobs was about 4.1, so that's about what you're getting from that offensive line, which they're trying to improve this year. 21 carries per game over 17 games at 4.3 yards per carry. Zamir White could be flirting with 1,500 yards rushing for the season. He's going to have some positive touchdown regression. He did have higher yards after contact per attempt than Jacobs did last year. He has a higher athleticism score, and he's younger with less tread on the tires. He had a very similar usage pattern in the receiving game and in the running game too. They had pretty similar carry rates. I think Jacobs had a few more carries, but essentially Jacobs got bogged down in the Josh McDaniels offense, and then once he started his return right before Zamir White took over, he started getting a little bit more run. Zamir White carried that over, and he looked really good in the receiving game. They each had roughly 4 targets per game when they were full time, and that's a pretty good rate, especially for a bell cow back. Antonio Pierce's intent to establish the run. Luke Getsy has said that they're going to employ a zone run scheme this year. 2024 Zamir White is about to explode. He's a very solid PPR RB2. He's got RB1 upside with the idea in mind that he can carry his stats over into a full season and flirt with that 1,500 yards. If he comes up short of that at 1,200 yards and he puts together 8 or 9 touchdowns, he's going to be in the conversation to jump into that top 12 as a running back. Go out and get Zamir White. Trade. I'm looking at him in startups. I'm getting him as like my RB6. His ADP is still so low. He's an absolute value right now, especially with the potential there. Yes, they might go get a third day running back in the draft, but we're talking about somebody who's going to be supplemental to the offense, an Isaac Garendo, maybe a Bucky Irving, somebody like that. They're not going to spend a lot of draft capital on a running back at this point. So Zeus is loose. Let's go.
Let's go, Zeus. I love that call. Just he's already avoided a bunch of landmines already. Like Alexander Mattison is not a landmine in my opinion, and he's gonna have to escape the draft essentially. He's looking very good, and I love that call, Biggs. What do you got next for us, brother?
My number 2 free agent impact player was not a free agent, and he was barely impacted by a free agent moving, but he was mostly impacted by a trade. But I mean, I'm being ticky-tack here. I'm, splitting hairs. And this guy has been an oft-spoke of topic betwixt Grindberg and I, and that is Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver 1. Oh, it feels so good to say that. George Pickens. All right. In 2023, Pickens had more unrealized air yards and a higher number of uncatchable targets than Deontay Johnson did, who's now gone. He also had more deep targets. He ranked 25th in air yards per game in 2023. But here's the kicker. Russell Wilson is now in the building. Last year, Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph had on-target percentages of 71 for Pickett and 56% for Rudolph. When Mason Rudolph was in the second half of the season, his on-target throws were 56%. Russell Wilson was at 78%. Now you start looking at a higher number of uncatchable targets than Deontay Johnson in fewer targets. The ball is going to start landing in George Pickens' hands, and he can go get it. You talk about his separation. Oh, he doesn't get separate, whatever. You can be in his back pocket. He's going to steal that ball from you. He's so fun to watch. Russell Wilson was also 8th in true completion percentage, 8th ranked in the entire NFL among quarterbacks in true completion percentage. He threw as many catchable balls as all 3 Steelers quarterbacks, 100 fewer attempts. With Russ and his catchable ball rate, Pickens should see a plus touchdown regression, an increase in catchable target rate. Now, in 2022, as a rookie, Pickens was wide receiver 48. In 2023, he was wide receiver 36. He's currently being drafted ADP 66 in Superflex startups behind Christian Watson, Quentin Johnston, and Jerry Jeudy, none of whom are wide receiver 1s on their teams. He's going to be a third-year, top 24 breakout this year, and he's going to carry top 12 upside with him. George Pickens, lead the way, baby.
All right, Biggs. I'll let you have this one. Your moment of glory. That's good. I think he's going to have a good year. I don't think Russ is going to be able to get the ball downfield as much as he used to be able to. So there's going to be some issues there. And I do think freaking Arthur Smith there is going to maybe Drake London him a little bit. He's going to have all the targets, and he's going to have the cat's meow, and he's going to eat there. So yes, absolutely.
I hear you. And I have 2 rebuttals. Number 1, the first being the deep ball. I watched Broncos games last year, not on purpose. It wasn't voluntary.
Didn't. Shut up.
But
nobody watches Broncos games on purpose.
When the Raiders were playing them.
Okay, fair.
Also, when they were going to lose, because it's a Schadenfreude thing, but I saw plenty of throws downfield where Russ was chucking and Cortland Sutton was coming up with the catch. And that's exactly the kind of deep ball receiver that George Pickens is. Russell Wilson can just chuck it without fear, and Pickens is going to get to the ball. He's great with the yak yards too. I think this is like, we've been waiting for Pickens for a long time because we've known that his talent is like out of the building. He was coming back off of an injury as a rookie, so it's understandable that he had a wide receiver for a finish. Last year, he was saddled with some of the worst quarterback play we've seen, and he still finished as a wide receiver 3. He's going to benefit from better quarterback play. He's going to be great. The other thing is the Arthur Smith thing. Arthur Smith as a head coach is not Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator. We've seen Arthur Smith in both roles. And last year with the Atlanta Falcons was Arthur Smith as a head coach. Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator made A.J. Brown fucking A.J. Brown with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. There's no reason that Arthur Smith isn't going to get the ball to George Pickens at similar rates to what he did with A.J. Brown. The whole Arthur Smith is bad talk. That was more Bijan Robinson related with a terrible quarterback than Arthur Smith. So we can move on from that. George Pickens to the moon, baby.
All right. Who do you got next there, Bigz?
My last one is technically a free agent, but he's not even in the league yet. That's Caleb Williams. I'm cheating again. Caleb Williams is a draft pick. And he wasn't helped by free agency. He was helped by the trades of Justin Fields out of Chicago to Pittsburgh, and Keenan Allen, #GoCal, into the Bears squared wide receiver room. Those weren't technically free agent moves. Now, Allen adds supportive hands to the receiving core, and that receiving core now includes Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, who's my tight end 12, Gerald Everett, who is capable of a 600-yard year, and running backs DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson, who are very capable pass catchers. Caleb Williams may be landing in a very similar situation to C.J. Stroud last year. And what I mean by that is a potential high-powered offensive situation moving from worst to first. And I haven't even started talking about Leb's profile yet. Yeah, that's what the cool kids are calling Caleb Williams, Leb. I think I might be the only one. Do you want a generational quarterback prospect with the first in the draft? Because Leb is one. I'm going to keep saying Leb. I don't care because it's short. It's short for Caleb, right?
I caught on. Leb.
Okay.
Leb Willie.
I'm not a huge fan of incoming college quarterbacks, but Caleb Williams is already my QB 10. Now, C.J. Stroud was my mid-teens quarterback last year, which allowed me to fade him and pick him up in Superflex, and I've talked about it a lot. But Williams is my QB 10. He hasn't even played a game yet. We don't even know what team he's going to be on, and he's a top 10 quarterback. People have been trying to slander him over the last 8 months, but if you notice, none of it, get it? None of it. It's a area in Canada for those. None of it is about his ability. It's about his crying after a game or his not doing anything at the combine. His physical superlatives are never really attacked. And the people who fade him on Twitter are clout chasing. If you want to know the true dope about Leb Williams, read the experts, right? Lance Zierlein, he's the NFL.com like major prospector guy. Caleb is his 101. Daniel Jeremiah, everybody listens to him around the combine. Multi-platform power and finesse, he says. He makes defenders look silly when he runs. He has special creativity. He has franchise-altering upside. But this is the big one. Brett Coleman, you may not know who he is, but go over to Bulletproof Football on YouTube and check out his stuff. He's not in the fantasy space. He's an NFL prospector, but his analysis has helped me make moves before, like finding Zay Flowers last season before other people were, uncovering Isaac Guerrero before the combine this year. Brett is at every Shrine game. He's at the Senior Bowl every year. He's at the Combine every year. He evaluates live. He grinds tape, and he's good at it. And here's another Coleman gem as an aside. You're too low on J.J. McCarthy. All right. Now, this is what Brett Coleman said. And let me adjust this so I can get the full quote without pausing. Quote, I've now talked to Caleb's teammates, I've talked to his coaches, and I've talked to folks who are helping him prepare for his rookie season. There's a team that is getting together with quarterbacks, and they're making Brock Purdy, and they're making Caleb Williams, and they're making various guys who are starting to explode in the league because of this program that they're working. They have Williams now. And I've talked to folks who are helping him prepare for his rookie season. Every single one of those conversations has only strengthened my belief in him. He is one of one, period. And now I leave it to you.
Leave it over to me because, Caleb Williams, he was already the number one overall pick headed into this, and no one now, after these moves, are giving up that 101 for anything. I think it's one of the most valuable picks out there right now in these startup drafts.
I have pushed back on him as much as I can because in my eyes, I eschew hype, and hype can't be real. But with this guy, hype is real.
Yeah.
And
about a month ago, I made a short on this very show that had you say, I'm not high on Caleb Williams, but you've changed your tune in a month. So that's pretty cool to see your progression. So neato. All right, let's get into Grindbergs. All right, so I guess it's my turn to go over my free agent impact player, and my number one player is Josh Jacobs. Adding Josh Jacobs was the first of two surprising moves the Packers made during free agency. The second was informing veteran Aaron Jones he was being released. With Jones out of the way and A.J. Dillon a mere backup, the path is clear for Jacobs to take on another featured role. Jacobs rushed for 5,545 yards in his career with the Raiders, averaging a nice 4.2 yards per carry. He has 46 rushing touchdowns, second most in the NFL since 2019. Behind only Derrick Henry. Jacobs led the NFL in rushing yards in 2022 with 1,653 rushing yards. What a great season that was. And he was a first-team All-Pro. In 2023, however, he missed 4 games, going for only 805 yards rushing and a 3.5 yards per carry. So his efficiency definitely took a dip and was a career low. But the Packers are counting on a bounce back campaign from the former first round pick, and they might expect more out of him as a receiver too, as Jacobs has good receiving chops. He had it in Alabama when he was there. I think he just wasn't used that way in Las Vegas through his tenure there. So I think with Jordan Love looking like he could be checking down a bit more this year, I could see Jacobs in the possibility of the 70 target range I'm hoping to see. I can easily see Jacobs reliving his 2022 campaign where he finished as the RB3. I have Jacobs as a huge riser this year, and I'm buying him in most formats. Jacobs rose up quite a bit right now, and he is my RB8 in Dynasty, and he has moved up to my RB4 in redraft currently. But those rankings are fluid, obviously, with the draft coming up. But I really like Jacobs' spot there. And yeah, he is on the age cliff there. He is getting older, but he is still young enough. And I think he's still got a little bit of time left in his tank here. What do you think about that one, Biggs?
Yeah, as soon as the signing happened, I totally flipped him in my rankings. Exactly what you thought Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon were going to do last season is what Josh Jacobs is going to do this season in Green Bay. He is capable of carrying the entire load by himself. He's done it before, and he's not too old. I love the signing for Green Bay. I love the Green Bay pasture for Josh Jacobs. I can't tell you how much I love that man and am excited for that whole situation, especially the fact that people were out on him because of his injury. So buy the dip, take advantage of the value, and grab him.
And this next one I got giddy over. I think we were recording this show last week, and then I got a notification that popped up that said Marquise Brown is now a Chiefs Kingdom representative. We now have a field stretching wide receiver that has been lagging in the last little while. Hollywood Brown signs a 1-year deal with the Chiefs. It gives the Chiefs back-to-back Super Bowl champions a legit threat that can finally stretch the field. They have a much-needed veteran presence now and a weapon outside the pair of superstar tight end Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. Mahomes and Andy Reid now have a weapon to deploy, and it looks like they might be looking to hit history and getting back-to-back Super Bowls. We will see. But the Ravens selected him 25th overall in the 2019 draft, making him the first wide receiver selected that year. He had a really good start to his career with his yards per route run. Pretty impressive to start his career. That has been on the decline since his first year. Worried about that, but he still commands the targets. In 2021, he had his best season as a pro. He recorded 91 receptions for 1,008 yards and 6 touchdowns, ranking him second on the Ravens in all 3 categories of receiving. So he was a really good threat there. He's a speedster down the field. Overall, he has been lights out for the Ravens in that year, but now he's here with the Chiefs, and all this to say he should provide the Chiefs with a versatile weapon capable of creating big plays in a variety of ways. Despite the postseason success, the Chiefs have struggled on offense in 2023. A less than impressive wide receiving core plagued with drop passes and regularly came up short on big plays was a huge factor on that. And now Brown comes in and he's got better hands than the wide receivers that have come in this room in the past. It's really good news for Rashee Rice, which he'll take on a very similar role that he did last year, but I think his lackluster ADOT will increase in year 2 with some more protection or some more coverage going towards Marquise Brown. So I'm liking this move for the Chiefs. As far as Brown's fantasy production, I'm looking for him to be right around the fringe of an R wide receiver 2. With some weeks, he'll probably spike to a wide receiver 1, depending on the game. He should have a good year, a good prove-it year, and he should be motivated to land a big contract in 2025. Brown to the moon here. I think the Chiefs are really looking good now after that move, and we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I've always considered Marquise Brown to be a little bit overrated, but I have no problem in moving him up my ranks with his move. I like it.
Yeah. And now my last one here is it's Tyjae Spears, because he was pretty impacted by this move, I'd say. But to quote the great Bigz, I am not worried about Tyjae Spears because of Tony Pollard. I tend to agree with my good friend Bigz. Playing as a sophomore, Spears racked up 863 yards in college there on 129 carries and 145 receiving yards on 19 receptions. In 2021, he blossomed, and in 2022, he rushed for 229 times for 1,500 yards and 19 touchdowns. What a great senior year in college there he had. Super impressive. There was teams that were off of Spears in the draft because of his ACL, and then he got a really tough landing spot with the Texans. They selected him 81 overall in the 3rd round, coming into a Derrick Henry backfield. Many thought it would be hard for him to break into Henry's workload, like so many have failed to do in the past, but we saw that young running back emerge, and he did coexist and was a fantasy option that was playable most weeks. So Spears clearly had a much different skill set than Derrick Henry, but now comes in Tony Pollard, and that decision really, shakes my head a little bit weird. Like, why did they bring in a back that has this very similar skill set? I am very high on Spears still, but I just think that Pollard threatens Spears' role a little bit. Unfortunately, it does cap Spears' ceiling. The hopes of him becoming a true workhorse back is probably gone. I can see these guys splitting the work almost 50-50, with the Titans going with the hot hand most weeks. Spears is still a top 15 Dynasty running back for me. I still have him as my RB 12 in Dynasty, but I am still picking up the pieces from the frenzy. So we've have to experience. This is all fluid, and I'm going to have to reassess my rankings right away, but I still have Spears as a bright spot there. Pollard is going to take away from him, but I still think he's got a really good opportunity. He was splitting the backfield with Derrick Henry last year, so he's going to have an increased role regardless if Pollard's there.
I disagree. I don't think he's going to be diminished by Pollard's presence at all. I don't have any problem with Pollard being there. In fact, I drafted Tyjae Spears as my RB2 in the 12th round in this freaky startup that we've already started. We're in round 30 out of 102 rounds, and we start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 running backs. Start 10 running backs. Tyjae Spears is my RB2, and I'm going to win this league. So take that for what it's worth.
All right, man. Okay, that makes me feel a lot better about all my Tyjae Spears shares that I have. And
what about the ones that you traded to me?
They won me a championship, so it don't matter.
It's all about the chip, baby.
It's all about the chip. Okay, Biggs, let's send us off. Send our viewers off with a good note here.
Yeah, I got to scoot over to the Undroppables side and do my Raiders biz. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe and click the bell. We will be with you next week. And we got more news coming because we are always on the grind. He's Grindberg. I'm Bigz. This has been the Dynasty Pulse. I hope you win.